Hello, friends. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm Samantha Carter, and this is the Scribbles and Hearts podcast. Do a little rebranding just to get back to what we actually are, which is Scribbles and Hearts. So, on this podcast, we talk a little bit about how to nourish your soul through using art, how we can enhance our lives with the use of art. So, on today's episode, we are going to talk a little bit about mindfulness. But before we actually get into that, let's talk a little bit about our expectations of ourselves as adults. And if we know how to do something intellectually, then that should equate to us being able to do it physically or in any other which way. I just heard a quote from Bob Ross the other day. Amazing man, amazing artist, amazing teacher, and such a gentle soul. And I love this quote. He was doing some touring, and people always came up to him and would say that I don't have the talent that you have. And he essentially said that's baloney. Talent is pursuit and trust, and that anything you are willing to practice, you can do. And I love this because it kind of speaks a little bit to the fact that anything we want to get good at requires effort and it requires our time. And so often we get frustrated with our lack of progress in things. And if we really take a step back and look at, okay, how much time have you put into this? And how much effort have you put into this? And if we're not good at it yet, it's probably because we need to do a little bit more practice. And we get so impatient with ourselves and not picking it up right away. We don't give ourselves a little bit of grace when we are trying to improve a skill, which, if we're just a little bit more patient and we give ourselves that time and we take that focused, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on something. And really, if we do 15 minutes a day on something that we're interested on, that we want to get better at, over time, you will see the benefits of that gradual progression. And with anything, it's gradual until it's suddenly. So gradually over time, you improve slowly until all of a sudden you realize how good you are at something. So I would encourage you all to have a little bit of patience with yourself on what you are trying to improve on and what you want to learn, and that you will notice over time that you will get better and better and better at it. And that anything worth pursuing, anything worth getting better at, takes practice. So that's my little rant for today before we getting into mindfulness. So, the three things that we're going to talk about today is, so what is mindfulness? What are the benefits of mindfulness, and how we can better practice mindfulness in our lives? So, if you think about mindfulness, it is a practice. It is not something that you just have, it is not something you just do. It is something that takes practice over time to get better at it. And as soon as you stop doing it, you can lose some of the progress that you've made. So it is something that I recommend that you do on a regular basis. I say this in my personal life all the time, that mental health, or having good mental health, or having mental wellness, is a full-time job. And by that, I mean it requires mindfulness and it requires regular practice to stay on top of it. We have so many things that are thrown at us in this life, whether it's distractions from our jobs, interactions with our relationships, worry about our children, worry about our well-being, our physical health, so many different things that our thoughts can be going a mile a minute. So really, mindfulness is paying attention to your thoughts and recognizing them. So what is mindfulness? It really is about being present in the moment. It is about focusing on what you're doing right now in the moment and how you are doing it. Paying attention to your senses, paying attention to the things that are happening around you in that moment. And it's really a state of awareness of your own experience in the current moment. And there's so many different ways that you can do this. You can have mindful minutes. You can spend a long time being mindful and doing things that cultivate a mindful practice. What are the benefits of mindfulness? Well, one of the key benefits that I find is that paying attention to your thoughts and paying attention to what's happening in the moment can give you the ability to recognize what's going on with yourself. If you are being mindful, you can help yourself with emotional regulation. It can reduce your reactivity to stimulus. And as I mentioned, we have stimulus coming at us all over the place. It can improve your mood. It can reduce rumination. It can reduce anxiety and depression. It can improve your brain function and it can improve your relationships. So there are a lot of benefits to mindfulness. We might wonder, why don't we all do this? Why don't we do this more often? Because it's hard. It is hard work to be mindful and it takes practice. Like anything you become talented at, it is hard work. And as soon as we start to get away from the practice of it, it gets harder to get back to it. If you can build it into a routine and develop a habit around it, you are definitely going to be better off. So, what are some ways in which we can be mindful? And really, meditation. It is mindfulness in itself is a form of meditation, but it's not meditation in and of itself. So, you can use meditation to become more mindful. You can do yoga. You can do body scan meditation. You can go for walks and be mindful while you're walking. You can just sit and pay attention to what is happening around you for a minute. That can be mindful. You can intentionally bring openness to what you are doing and find some joy in simple pleasures. You can work on accepting yourself as a mindful practice and you can focus on your breathing. So, there is a lot of ways in which we can be mindful. I do want to talk a little bit about meditation very briefly because I feel like meditation is a life hack. And I used to think about meditation as something I had to do to sit and try to clear my mind. And I found that that was extremely difficult to do, almost impossible. I used to think that the goal of meditation was to get to a place where your mind is blank and you're not actually thinking of anything. And I finally have recently understood that meditation really is about recognizing that the thoughts that you have as they come up and actually not latching onto them and letting them go. So, meditation really is about just observing your mind. And it's not about trying to stop yourself from doing something. And that was always a struggle with me in meditation. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, what you resist persists. And for me, that was the biggest struggle is if I kept trying to resist the fact that my mind was focusing on thoughts or couldn't be cleared. And so I was never able to get to a place of real peace with meditation until I really discovered Sam Harris. And Sam Harris made me understand meditation in a very different light than what my previous understanding of it was. He does have an app, a Waking Up. There's a lot of free guided meditations out there that you can check out too. I will include some resources in the show notes as well so that you can connect with those and kind of discover what works for you. But the key hack in meditation is recognizing the thoughts and understanding that you do not have to attach to them and that you can let them go, that you are not your thought. And that as a thought comes up, it doesn't have to be real, factual. You can just observe the fact that that thought came up, acknowledge it, maybe even label it. Was it a good thought? Is it an intrusive thought? Is it a factual thought? You can label it and then just let it go and refocus on your breathing to get you back to a place where you can become just an observer of your mind. And that is the beauty of meditation. So meditation is a way we can be mindful. So we talked about a couple ways that you can be mindful. Yoga is another one, which is something that I tend to practice as I do find it very beneficial. When I'm focusing on poses, when I'm focusing on breathing, I'm really not thinking about other things. Gardening can be mindful. Weeding, trimming plants, watering, maybe pulling some weeds. Turning over the earth, getting immersed in nature, that can be another way you can be mindful. But the heart of this episode, and one that is, of course, very near and dear to me, and that is art. How can art help us with mindfulness? And there are a couple of ways. And if you're following along with this podcast on YouTube, then you will have seen that we've been working on some mindful art practices as I've been talking. And there are some great ways in which you can use art to be mindful. Using whatever medium that you have, you can put that down on the paper and just really focus on the senses while you are doing art. You can focus on what does the paintbrush or the pencil feel like in my hand while I'm practicing drawing these circles, while I'm painting these squares, while I'm moving the pen. What does it feel like in my hand? What does the paper feel like? What am I seeing? What colors am I looking at? And you can breathe through this while you are focusing on the marks that you're making on the paper with whatever medium it is you're using to create that artwork. You can see that we've used a couple of different techniques in this video, but I'm going to give you some other ones. One is that you can draw with the breath. So taking whatever implement or whatever media you're most comfortable with, whether it's paint, a paintbrush, whether it's a watercolor, whether or not it's a pen or a coloring pencil, just draw with your breath. Change the frequency of your breaths, make them deeper, make them shallower. And then as you're breathing, just move the pencil or whatever writing implement you have over the page, and you can draw with the breath. Change direction after a few seconds. Make longer lines or bigger circles with bigger breaths, those kind of things. And really do that you can even do it for 5 minutes, and you will have achieved a level of mindfulness as a short practice. And then once you're satisfied with the pattern that you made with those lines, then you can start coloring those in, or you can start filling those in with other marks. We've done that in some previous videos that you can see either on Instagram or on YouTube videos that we've recorded, some of those drawing with the breath practices. Another activity that you can engage in, and that's turn on a song that you really enjoy listening to. I was actually just listening to somebody talking about music the other day, and I'm going to ask you this. Why do you listen to music? So why do any of us listen to music? And if the thought that came to you in answer to that question was it makes us feel good, you will be among 90% of the people who respond to that question. We listen to music because it makes it feel good. So we put on a song that we enjoy listening to and pick up a writing implement or a drawing utensil and start making some marks on a paper along with the beat of the song. So if you have a really fast rhythm, maybe you make some quick marks with that on the paper, some quick scribbles, circles, straight lines. See what it feels like to make straight lines or really quick marks while you're listening to that song. Pay attention to the sounds and pay attention to the marks that you're making on the paper. That will give you some senses to focus on while you were listening to the music. So you're hitting a couple of senses there. You're focusing on the feel of the paper. You're focusing on hearing the music. What else are you hearing when you're paying attention to the paper? Are you hearing the scratching sound or the paint sound of the media on the paper while you're doing it? And so that's another activity that you can use art for to help you engage some mindfulness and get a little bit of peace while you're doing that. And then another one that you can do is what we just did in this video. So we did some watercolor squares that you can see that I have filled in with some ink. And then I also just spilled some coffee on a piece of paper. And spilling the coffee on the paper is something everybody can do. Maybe we don't all have watercolors. Maybe we don't have media that is readily available to us. So then pick something else that you can make a color or stain on a piece of paper with. And then all you need is a pen or a pencil to make additional marks, to use art to help you be mindful, to create an artwork. So in both of these examples, after I made the stains on the paper, I took an ink pen and then I have just made some scribbles, whatever I felt like in the pattern. In some cases, I followed the line of the coffee stain and outlined it where it was darker. Same within the watercolor swatches. I might have made some florals. I may have changed the direction in which I made a line. I made some circles or some organic shapes that then I would fit together. So there are lots of ways that you can use ink and any type of color stain to create an artwork that can bring you some mindfulness while you are doing that. I'm going to put a link to a video in the show notes that will talk a little bit more about mindfulness that I found really interesting. In that video, it does talk about the fact that 98% of our daily thoughts are repetitive thoughts from the day before. That is a huge portion of our thoughts. And some of those are conscious and some of those are unconscious. The practice of mindfulness and meditation helps you become more aware of those unconscious thoughts that can be potentially limiting to you or driving some of those ruminations or unhelpful thinking that is contributing to things like anxiety and depression. So I'm hoping that this video may have helped you with some ideas and how you can make mindfulness more of a practice in your daily life. And even a minute of mindfulness a day can improve your overall well-being and giving you some of the benefits that we talked about in this podcast. If you like what you heard today, or you feel like you know someone who could benefit from it, please subscribe or share, and we'll speak with you next time. Thanks so much.